Okay, we're here again. It's Atlanta Discuss, State of the Nation. Every Friday, that's what we do. We need to talk about State of the Nation. State of the Nation, Nigeria, the largest concentration of Black people on the planet. We say it all the time, lagging behind in everything. You know, a lot of prospect in 1960 when it got independence, but for some reason, there's been so much going on and on and on. And, you know, sometimes it takes 2 or 3 steps forward, but 7, 9 steps backward. That's not good. I mean, you know, so, but then it's been in a democratic setting for about 25, 26 years thereabout, but it does look like, even though it has been consistent, the country cannot be particularly said to be a democratic country for so many reasons, you know, lack of free and fair elections and economic stability has been unpredictable. Most importantly, you know, the people are not living happily together. If you don't have herdsmen killing people, tribal war and all that, I mean, it's not the type of problem Nigeria should be grappling with at this time. But that's why today I bring to you somebody that should know, that knows, you know, it's a diaspora, but it's played a strategic role as a Nigerian diaspora. It's run for public office as a senator in Delta State under AGiC. I mean, I'm sure he has to run again. If he does it, I'm going to be one of those that will push him to do that, because he has so much to offer. He has been vital statistics for NIDOE in Europe, NIDOE all over the world, a unificator par excellence. You know, he has helped African refugees in Germany, where he's domiciled. You know, it's not just Nigerians, Kenyans, Tanzanians. This guy knows no tribe. He's just a humanist to the core. That's why today we call him Senator Kenneth Gbandi. Senator, welcome to Atlanta Discuss State of the Nation.
Thank you, Atlanta Senator, for giving me that honor. Hopefully that my people in my constituency will be as generous as you. Thank you so much for having me.
So we're happy to have you. And let me just shoot straight to you on this. 1999 till date, you know, we've had what you call democracy of some sort. Are you pleased with the way it's going? Are you happy with it?
Let me start by saying that my heart, you know, goes to the family, you know, in Benue State that has been massacred, you know, over and over again. At the same time, my heart, you know, also reached out to all the families across Nigeria who has been, you know, murdered by the, you know, by the headsmen, by bandits, who has been kidnapped. You know, recently we see what happened in Benue State, which is actually is becoming a monthly occurrence, if not a daily occurrence. And so, coming from that background, that perspective, it will be madness to say that I'm happy. No, I'm not happy. Like you said, despite 25 years of uninterrupted democratic rule in Nigeria, we are still struggling as a nation. As a matter of fact, we've been on a reversal since the past 2 years. When I mean reversal of democracy, we'll see our institutions crumbling. We'll see our, you know, our judicial system being compromised. We'll see the camping from party left and right and the rest of them. No, so I'm not happy. No, I don't think any Nigerian should be happy. We are living far below our potential.
Wow. So why do you think where we are now? I mean, like I asked you, you're not happy, but why do you think the situation is like that? Is it that the foundation was not properly laid, or the way the military gave it to us? Some have said it's constitutional, that we operate the constitution whereby if me and you read it, or like we have read, the first line goes, "We, the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria." And a lot of scholars have asked and said, when did we, the people, write the constitution? If you understand what I'm trying to say. So, foundationally speaking, what do you think is the cause of all this?
I think there can be a better analysis. They say when the head is not sound, the whole of the body is weak. In this case, the head is the constitution in Nigeria. Of course, the current constitution, you know, is largely a military imposed one, you know, and we all know that it does no longer serve the, you know, the needs of the federation. I mean, you just started it to say we the people. When a set of military dictators sat down to write a constitution for us, so one can understand that, you know, so many things, you know, went went wrong into writing that constitution, which is still affecting us today. So yes, constitution is a major problem. We are still, unable to have a decentralized, power, sharing system as it should be. Of course, it is there on paper, but we know that it's not the case. I mean, during my election, I gave so many examples to that. One of them was being in a situation, I think in Lagos, if I'm not mistaken. I think when, if I'm not mistaken, Fashola, no, not Fashola, either Fashola or Ambode was the governor. Any of the two, I think I've forgotten exactly. That was in Magodo. When they have an issue with the tenants and whatever, community there, and they called in the governor stepped into, to mediate. And when he got in there, we had a set of policemen that sealed off the areas. They refused to shift for the governor, who is the chief executive officer of the state. And they insisted that they cannot move because they have an order from the above who asked them to be stationed there. And so it took, so many arms twisting to avoid a bloodshed. So if in a country where the state governor, who is supposed to be the chief police officer of the state, and does not have any rights and control over the security architecture, then that's just a typical example of the situation we're having in Nigeria. And so I think the constitution is flawed. The current constitution we're having is long overdue, and it's time we actually work on that.
All right, fantastic. So now, scholars have said so much. Now I'm talking on the constitution now. Do you think we should try a parliamentary system of government, or we should still run with this presidential system of government? Because some of my past guests have told us that this presidential system of government is too expensive, that in a parliamentary system, the prime minister does not have a choice but to account to the parliament every week, which the people will see. But the presidential system makes the president look like a god of some sort. You understand? Do you agree with that? Absolutely.
As a matter of fact, I think there are so many people who have called, for the abolition of Nigerian Senate, because they are thinking it's not really serving any useful purpose in Nigerian circle. Of course, the kind of the system we are running is quite too expensive. I think we just borrowed a democratic system that is not meant for Africa. I think I'm not, I might not be the best constitutional scholar on that, but even our former president Obasanjo recently, as far back as a few weeks ago, saying that the democracy we're having in Africa, especially in Nigeria, has failed us, because it's obvious that every country, every nation, especially our continent Africa, we have to come up with a governing system, a democratic system that is akin to our tradition and our culture. And so far, one can argue that that's the best we have for now. Of course, we can't have a vacuum. So that's why there's a serious need, to rethink about the Nigerian architecture, especially our democratic institutions and our system of government. So yes, I totally agree with you. It's time we get rid of what we are currently operating on.
Okay, as a Nigerian in diaspora, I know you go home a lot. You are doing a lot in Delta State, vis-a-vis housing and all that. In fact, we posted a story today about some of your housing project in Delta on Atlantic Digest. But
thank you so much. Sir.
Because we just love to encourage every diaspora, irrespective of tribe, is doing abroad. So, but how do you think Nigeria's economic and security challenges can be effectively addressed? Because whether we change the constitution or not, the situation is what it is right now. You understand? Before we change the constitution, it's a process. The people that are beneficiary of the current status quo, of course, does not want it to change. So I don't even think there's going to be a constitutional amendment in the nearest future. So in lieu of our present predicament, how do we address the economic and the security situation in Nigeria today, as far as we are concerned?
Well, I totally agree with you. You can get the best constitution in the world. It has to do with the drivers of this constitution. You can also have a bad constitution, and you have some good drivers who can, common sense, will prevail. And so I think you're basically right. Leadership and accountability is missing in Nigeria. I mean, if you look at what is happening in the country, whether it's a Senate president's accusation, whether it's innocent or not. But there should be a due process. There should be accountability. There should be a rule of law. If there's no rule of law, if there's no accountability, if there are no due processes, you can forget it. And so, are you talking about the economic, in development of a country? Is it going to run on what? It's going to run on accountability. It's going to run on due process. If any country or any investor from anywhere in the world is not sure that his investment will be secure, it's not sure that one big man will come one day and bring a bulldozer and pull down the structure claiming it's on a government land. If nobody can trust the judicial system, that can say that if the company, if I sign a company with Atlantic Radio, and they go against our constitution, I can go to court and get justice. If those things are not done, then of course we can.
Nobody will invest.
Nobody's going to invest.
Even so, we diasporas are struggling.
We can absolutely. So before we even talk about economy, before we talk about development, we need to really talk about our system of our government. We need to talk about the people, the individuals that runs the system. If there are accountabilities, if people are are held accountable to their actions or inactions, I mean, we can begin to have a society where even with a flawed constitution, we can be able to, to move along or pass along until we're able to, every constitution is dynamic in anywhere in the world, apart from, a few other countries that have an unwritten constitution. But we could be able to, optimize whatever we have. If we have accountability, if we have, leaders that are actually, are ethical, who understands that they are there to serve the people, not to serve themselves. So once we have those factors missing, we are definitely in a deep trouble. And that is why your introduction states that after 25 years of democracy, we are taking one step forward and 25 steps backwards, and it's a pity.
Yeah. So you agree with those that say that our problem is not the constitution; it's actually failure of leadership.
It's a combination. Because again, the constitution empowered, the failure of leadership. For instance, yes, if we have a constitution that is flawed, but we have a system that is basically, although it's difficult to separate one from the other, but we have a system that, are holding people accountable for their action in action. And they will be able to at least, sit up a little bit. I have this story when I was quite old, that a minister from Nigeria visited Brazil, and saw some very how the guy is living big, very fantastic bungalows, having some cars and the rest of them, and he said, "Oh, in Nigeria, we are very modest, ministers. We, do things. How do you manage to get all these, lavish lifestyle?" He said, "You see that rising building?" He said, "Yes." He said, "I had 10% on that." He said, "You see that other bridge across the river?" I said, "Yes, 5%. Just few years, there's a reversal. The minister visited the Nigerian minister and discovered that he's even living 10 times what he used to. And he said, "Oh boy, I taught you this. How come you are living?" He said, "Do you see those rising buildings?" He said, "Yes." He said, 10%. He said, the man looked and he can't see there's no rising building.
Oh, wow.
He said, "Do you see that bridge?" He said, "Where is the bridge?" He said, "Forget about it." So why people, it just show you the bogusness of the life of the moral decadence in Nigeria. God bless you. And so we can't say that constitution it's all. We need to begin to hold people accountable for their action or inactions.
Do you think because I always say something, I mean, some people agree with me, some don't agree. I think there's a lot of inherent dishonesty in the land. Do you think the traditional institution and the religious institution have played a role in this moral decadence?
Yes. There's no two ways about it. Until few months or years ago in Nigeria, we had a man of God, Dr. Ebert Damila, who challenged the long preaching that if you don't give your first fruit in the church, if you don't pay your tithe, you are not you're going to go to hell. And we have a lot of our so-called men of God, living lavishly with jets, building universities that their members cannot afford. And we have, a society being driven by greed, by money, and you see, you know, our so-called Yahoo boys, you know, having a, you know, fantastic lifestyle, and of course nobody cares to, you know, do anything right anymore. They believe that education is scam. They believe that hard working is a scam. It's the power of you know, if you have all the money, you can get whatever you want. So I just mentioned that, for example, of the you know, the our pastors and our imams. It's not only in the Christian faith but also in the Muslim faith. And you look at the, you know, also our traditional rulers who are supposed to be the custodians of culture, who are supposed to, you know, to fear the spirit of the land, you know, to uphold, you know, whatever that is good in this land. And you see them falling in on the feet of politicians because they are going to get one jeep or one Prado jeep or one you know, and you see them singing, on your mandate we stand, rather than being a father for all. They decide to already become partisan and take a position. And these are, I mean, we are in serious trouble. Nigeria is in serious trouble. Yes, these are institutions. These are our royal fathers. These are some of our pastors, our religious leaders. They are not doing service to, you know, to the country. Of course, we have exceptions. We have people who are standing up. We have very few people who are talking out. But they are in the minority. They are just like a few voices in the wilderness.
Let's talk about the Bola Tinubu presidency. You know, I mean, there was some level of expectation, whether you supported him or not, that, okay, someone that's been governor, you know, in opposition for a while, he has played a very strategic role in fighting the military in the Teco days, even as an opposition leader in AD, AC, ACN, and so on. He was always there, fought Obasanjo, roughshod, tooth and nail, you understand. Same thing, Jonathan was one of the architects of APC, one of the first major alliance and coalition, successful one for that matter. You know, but now that he's president, has he met your expectation?
Well, of course, like, you know, I'm a member of the opposition party, the African Democratic Congress. So whatever I say, you know, people are going to view it from the, you know, from the prism of you know,
yeah, I mean, but you also have a knack for being an objective person.
I'm a Nigerian. I wanted to come to that. I'm a Nigerian. You floated these impressive democratic credentials, which, of course, before this time, we all you know, think it's something one has to be proud of. But let's take the situation in Rivers State. As a Democrat, as somebody who has believed in the rule of law, do you think is the right thing to do? Do you think you know, a democratically elected governor will be sacked and appointed, whether it's ex or current military, you know, man serving? This is undemocratic. And so, from the democratic point of view, we can actually score him low on that. Look at the situation where my state, for instance, Delta State. Of course, I'm not a member of PDP. But Delta State has been over 19 years a member of, you know, a PDP as a state. And they just one day went to bed as a PDP and woke up as APC in the morning. And the whole government, the whole commissioners, appointed SCs and the rest of them, they all decamped overnight. And of course, the speculations are there. It's not far-fetched that because EFCC are going after the former governor, Senator Ifeanyi Okowa, and though, like Oshomole once said, once you become a member of the APC, all your sins are forgiven. And of course, they are member of APC now. We're no longer hearing any. I'm not saying he's guilty. I'm not saying, you know, a man is innocent until he's proven guilty. But these are speculation. These are the driving. These are the forces. You know, there. So when you put all these things together, and again, talk about the economy. Not Kenneth Gbandi saying this. You know, go to the markets, go and check out the prices of foodstuffs, go and check out the number of unemployment in Nigeria, go and check out the electricity bill, and go and let us know whether we are better where we were, you know, 4 years or 5 years ago than what we have now. What are the exchange rate now? What's the price of a liter? So these are the indices. These are the indices one that we put together, and you can answer that question without even being very, very, you know, honest and unbiased to know, are we better off 4 years than we are now? Now, there's no doubt that every reforms come with some certain, you know, element of, you know, difficulties and inconvenience, so to say. But when you are seeing a result, when you're seeing a result that these difficulties are actually leading to improvement in certain areas of the economy of the nation, you can have a sympathy, that okay, we need to tighten our belt, and so that we can help, pull out of this situation where we are. But while they are telling us to tighten our belt because there's a need to do that, we see some governors going on a trip, even Mr. President going on a trip with how many thousands of convoys and the rest of them, all government money, taxpayers money. They're going to fuel the car, they're going to pay the drivers, they're going to, I mean, you can go on and on and on and on. And so yes, at the end of the day, no, there's no way somebody who, over 50 years now, who have seen a little bit, not much, a little bit of a better Nigeria, can gladly say that we're better off today. No. Currently, Nigeria is experiencing an unprecedented both economic and security challenge in the history of the country.
So Tinubu has not met your expectations?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk about opposition parties. Some will say that the opposition are not even holding the ruling party to account. They're almost non-existent. I can't remember the last time I read a statement from ADC, your party. The last thing I read was they were talking about the coalition. We'll talk about later. PDP is dead. It's dead. And it's unfortunate, really, how so a sort of Leviathan like that would just collapse due to the, whatever reason. But my question to you is that why is it so hard for opposition party to hold the ruling party, hold them to account, considering, if you mentioned the campaign, almost every senator in Labour Party has gone to APC. So my question really is, how can they be more effective? How can the opposition party be more effective in holding the ruling party to account?
Well, let me make a correction. If you follow up my party, AGiC, my national chairman, Chief of Okenwosu, is constantly in the news, whether it's whether it's on print media or on TV, criticizing the government constructively. From this perspective, also, you've actually mentioned that in your introductory, statement. As a member as a national deputy chairman of this great party, I have not hesitated to also issue a statement, whether it had to do with the economy, with the security issues. But to your question, most of the campaign we have had so far, it's very obvious is ruling party induced. I just give you an example. The former governor of a state who is being, chased by AFCC to give account of his stewardship, all of a sudden, decamped to APC, and so far we are no longer hearing anything about the issue. You see a National Assembly, which is an equal co-tier of a government, so supposed to be a check, on another executive branch. The president is coming into the National Assembly and they are singing, "On your mandate we stand." I mean, these are things that you can see and you just want to shed tears. Who is going to hold who accountable? And so it is difficult for the opposition party because, I mean, I've tested the shark political field water in Nigeria, and you understand that if you are an opposition in Nigeria, if they try to buy you over and you fail to come over, they will intimidate you. If you don't succumb to intimidation, they will find somebody nearer to you or someone that is close to you. They have all this. Again, that leads down to accountability. That leads down to the rule of law. That leads down to to leadership, the ethics, and the rest of them. And this is why we are saying that Nigeria has never seen it so bad, because the things that are basically probably working before and the things that are no longer working before, that actually have a check-in, a balance, a kind of a check and balances, have totally collapsed. Everything has collapsed. So we are just living, well, I would say by the grace of God as a Christian, but of course we are living because people have just refused to make a decision. They've refused to look at the stomach infrastructure rather than standing up for the people that elected them and to represent them.
Yeah, but there's another school of thought, really, that if you're in opposition and you have not stolen and you have not embezzled money, there's no reason for you to be scared of EFCC or any intimidation, if you understand what I'm trying to say.
You're basically right. We have an adage, even from one of the greatest book in the world, and one of our, spiritual mentor, our God, our Christ. When a woman, that was caught in the act was about to be stoned to death, he said, if you do not have, if you are not without sin, throw the first stone. That's not to mean to encourage embezzlement. Using that as an excuse to say that is why people are not talking. I think probably, I don't think, what I mean to say is that everybody is basically not about embezzlement. Now, you're talking about the opposition members who are, you mentioned the Labour Party, they just got into the government for the first time. So where will they have the time to embezzle? They've not even embezzled anything, but because they are being, like I said, induced, they will either bribe them, intimidate them, bringing out, if they can't reach them, they reach out for somebody behind them or somebody close to them. And so it's a lot of issue of a system that is not working. It's a function of a system that is collapsing. If you are innocent, you've not done anything, and you are being denied your statutory allocation, let's even come home. Look at the situation in the Senate about Natasha and the Senate President. I'm not saying anybody is right, anybody is wrong. Like I said, people should be able to subject themselves, to the scrutiny within the rule of law to be proven innocent or not. Now, had Natasha embezzled any money before I think because she spoke out, and that is why she's facing prosecution. And you want so many opposition members to stand in the Senate and start speaking out without being framed for one thing or the other. So it's always easier to say, if your hands are clean, then you need to speak out. Some people are speaking out, to be honest with you. A lot of law members are speaking out, but nobody's hearing their voice because either they are giving a media blackout or they are being threatened or intimidated one way or the other. Again, the system need to be changed. We need to really, really restructure the system.
Oh, wow. So do you believe there's a need for stronger opposition? Do you think all parties should come together and provide a credible alternative? I'm talking about the coalition, Do you think it's the right thing to do?
There's no two ways about it. Absolutely. I'm happy for a reply when they asked the chairman of APC about the issue of the fear of one-party system where everybody is decamping. He said, China, for instance, is one of the best economy in the world. They have a one-party system, and nobody's complaining. And somebody was quick to remind him that in China, when you steal or you are being caught for corruption, you are being put on a firing squad.
They kill you.
They kill you. So because of that, so we shouldn't compare, apples and oranges. Yes, without a very credible opposition in Nigeria, which it's not only tailored towards Nigeria, anywhere in the world, without people being held accountable for their action and action, they have a tendency, to do whatever they want to do and get away with that. Moreover, it's not about opposition for the sake of opposition. It's opposition. To call people out for not doing the right thing, to put up a credible suggestion how things can be done better, and also to engage in a civil discourse on how things should be done better. In our own case, it's like anytime you call any officer being elected to represent the people, you call out for their action and inaction. They threaten you with being arrested or being intimidated. And so yes, I agree with you. I support that motion that we need to have a credible opposition to be able to hold this ruling party to account.
Is ADC your party the final bus stop of the coalition?
Well, currently the ADC is the political bride of Nigeria. There's no two ways about it. You said it yourself. PDP is dead. I didn't say that. That's the insinuation from most. That's from insinuation from most people. We have a Labour Party today. We have two fractions. Fighting for the survival of their life, each going to court, each coming out and say, hurrah, we won, the court has confirmed. You see confusion everywhere. And so whether it's induced or not, we see that there's a need for an untainted political party. ADC has nothing to lose. ADC has not been in the center of government. We have not, like you said, have corrupt people who have embezzled money and the rest of them, and so we have nothing to fear. I mean, I went to Nigeria. I ran for Senate with my own money. Thank God for people like you who help to raise money, in the diaspora. And so, why would I be afraid of being? In fact, the EFCC we should be investigating the EFCC, as a matter of fact, because they have to give account for all the money they are collecting and they are seizing, and let us know what they are doing with that. So I have nothing to fear, and I think most AGiC members, and as a coalition leader, should be actually a blessing to Nigeria in this point in time of this country.
Talking about EFCC, I think they really made a lot of mistakes, because I know recently they declared the former governor of Kogi State wanted for fraud and what have you. And recently, the president of the country congratulated that same person. Happy birthday! So, like, wow, I don't know. It's a moral error, so to say. So let's go to the North Central. Benue, Plateau. It's mayhem, carnage, killing, all the negative word, pogrom, genocide. Everything fits it. What do you think can be done to stop this once and for all? What do you think has to be done?
First, I said my heartfelt condolence for this region. There's no truth about they are going through hell. I personally, most people might disagree with me. I personally, thank the president for going, to the region, to pay a condolence visit for the people. That is what we would have been expecting for the past 2 years. Because the political will, the body language of Mr. President has not been very, very decisive till now. And I'm happy that probably his advisors, have said, Mr. President, it's time we begin to put our foot down and the rest of them. What can be done? Like you said, I am not a military expert, but I was very, reading on the media that when we used to have a military general, I think g.UG, so if I'm not mistaken, if I'm not mixing up the name, who during his time, we had a very robust security architecture in Nigeria, where we were not having most of these issues. So I think the body language of Mr. President is very, very important. In most advanced country in the world, the police, the IG of police, the head of military, they all would have their roles would have been rolling by head. Their heads would have been rolling by now. They would have been asked to vacate their seats if they cannot stop this killing. But unfortunately, like I said, we're in a country where everybody is competing to outdo one another in pleasing Mr. President rather than doing their job. And most importantly, I think I've said that in most of your interview, that I made an example of the issue of the chief security officer in Lagos State and the issue in Magodo and the police. We need to have a state police. There's no two ways about it. A situation where you have a Delta man in Sokoto as the police commissioner of police, or an Hausa man in Delta as the state commissioner of police, how is it going to happen? These are just these are security architecture meant to hold on to power rather than to police the people. A local man, if you are appointed the commissioner of police in your state, your families are there, your friends are there, you grew up there, you knew people. The police security network anyway is about intelligence. It's not about brute force alone. You need intelligence. You need the people to trust you, to support you. How do you think an Hausa man will come up freely to give information for commissioner of police in the north from Delta, who he cannot even trust that is going to not only work with those information but also make sure that they implement that. The idea that to hold the federation, we have to swap these commissioners here and there to keep the country in unit, to keep the country as a united country, is purely meant to hold on to power and not to save the people or offer maximum security. If that's the case, please ask me, give me an example. Why is it not working? Why do we have this repeated killing in Benue State? Why is it not, in Delta State, the monarchs are being kidnapped, farmers are being killed and the rest of them? And most astonishing thing that you get them arrested today and tomorrow you see them back on the street. Who is making that decision? We don't understand that. And I think if you are the commissioner of police in your village, in your state, you would rather resign than to take any order from any above, from anywhere above, to do the thing that is not right and put your people, permanently under security risk. And I don't think you're going to do that. So we need to review our security architecture. We need to have the creation of the state police, and we begin to hold people accountable for their action. And Mr. President needs to step up his job. As a matter of fact, one of the prime duty of the president of any country is to secure these people, peace and security of these people, to secure that, to have this sovereign, borders as we may have it. So far in Nigeria, we are not having that, and Mr. President is failing on that duty. There's no two ways about it.
Okay, let's talk about Tinubu one more time. Yeah, my question on this would be, we've spoken security. Clearly has not done well in that area. Economically, he has not. So many areas. Yeah, judiciary, it's really not what it's supposed to be. The legislative arm of government too is not really independent. So my question, I'm trying to be fair to him now, as in, is there any area that you can categorically say, in the most emphatic way, like, oh, in this area, Bola Tinubu has done well? Is there any sector or any area of the Nigerian society that you can score him high or average or, something like that?
Well, honestly speaking, you've listed security. You've concluded it's not. You mentioned the legislation. You've also not given him a good pass mark. You've mentioned the judiciary. You've not given him the pass mark. And I ask myself, what is left in the country? Health. You can't forget it. Don't even go there. I remember, if you go back to your archive, the first time you asked me about Mr. President's reform, and then he was barely few months in the office. If you remember, I supported his bold move to carry out reform, believing that it's a right way to go, that any country who fail to initiate reform is going to really suffer the consequence in the long run. And so we gave him that benefit of doubt of carrying out the reforms, the harmonizations of the financial system, trying to remove the subsidy. But the question everybody has kept saying is, you are initiating these reforms in a very chaotic manner, that at the end of the day you end up creating more hardship than even alleviating that. Take example, you removed the oil subsidy. We're supposed to have probably better security, supposed to having the energy supposed to be improved and the rest of them. You remove the energy, so the petrol subsidy, you remove the subsidy on the electricity, you increase transportation, and at the end of the day, I don't understand how are the poor people in Nigeria, how are the people who are managing to survive, how are they going to survive? And so it's difficult, no matter how we try to be very constructive in our criticism of the current government. You search, you really open the book, you really try to see, okay, so that people don't say that you're biased. Is there any place you can really score him? And at the end of the day, you come out and say, sorry, I can't find any. So far, after 2 years, I can't find any.
So is it fair to say he was overrated and he's not prepared?
They said action speaks louder than word. The situation of Nigeria currently speaks for itself.
Wow, that's deep. Okay, let's talk about elections. In the past we had free election. The elections were free but never fair. Yeah, that's how I always say it on my show. Now they're not free, they're not fair. And the general feeling is that with the way things are going, a compromised INEC, a compromised judiciary, like Professor Dikalolo wrote in his book, that the judiciary takes people's power away from their ability to elect a leader at the ballot box. Now, at this rate, do you think we can go into 2027 election with hope of having a free and fair election without electoral reforms?
I doubt. I very much doubt.
Are you worried?
Absolutely. Most people have asked me, if I'm going to run again in 2027.
I am.
Thank you so
And
much,
I want
sir.
you to actually.
I hope that decision will be made very soon. And I asked myself, most of us in the diaspora, I can name a couple of them, even from United States, from UK. We were very, very hopeful about the electoral reforms. We were very hopeful that the beaver will make a difference. We were very hopeful that with technology, if the Nigerian banks can get their BVN very, very, fantastically well in terms of data security and the rest of them, that the beaver is going to be another miracle like telecom and like the banking sector. So we're all very, very happy, and then decided to join in the political re-engineering of our dear country, Nigeria. The rest is history. Chimanda, captured that in his book when he said that, I summarize or paraphrase, so to say. People were, you see, old women, you see, old men, you see, students, you see, young people staying in line for hours to get their voter's card. You see a massive turnout, the willingness, to go and decide how their life is going to be ruled. And what happened? After the election, in the middle of the election, when everything seems to be going on well, the so-called almighty servers, failed to function. The live transmission of result failed. And you take Edo State, for instance, just recently, where you see that the results we have from the world differ from what we have, in the server, and nobody's, and you just ask yourself,
and the judiciary is upholding.
You just ask yourself, what country are we living in? I mean, nobody have the balls to say this is not right. I mean, forget about the technicality. They will always find one technical reason to do that. So the fear is there, and I totally agree. We had a meet the diaspora from the African Democratic Congress, AGiC, and now the issue of not about mobilizing Nigerians, but about electoral security. My opinion is that yes, we still have about 2 years to go, and let us start that awareness now. Let us begin to to knock on all the doors, that until we have a very credible electoral reform, that 2027 is going to be just another sham. Let's play the devil's advocate to say, okay, maybe all these allegations tabled at the INEC chairman, maybe it's not correct. But from one state to the other, from one election to the other, we have never seen any group of people, observers, coming out to say that this election was very, very credible. Like you said, it was fair but not free, or it was free but not fair. We're having a situation where the elections are neither free or fair, and the head of the electoral institution is still comfortably sitting in his position, and nobody. In fact, in a normal world, the first thing to have, for any serious government to take action is to actually relieve such a person from the office, even if it's to make a cosmetic investigation to find out if there's a place there was compromise or incompetence, so to say. But we're just carrying on like if nothing has happened. And as a matter of fact, I saw him and Mr. President commissioning a new INEC extension in Abuja, and I just looked at it and I said, how can a child that is old enough to cast his first or her first vote in Nigeria, with all the cries of this incompetence and the electoral rigging, seeing the same man and Mr. President, going around as if nothing has happened, and you want them to go and vote, and you want them to have a trust in the system. We will not stop. That's why we need a very, very consolidated opposition to come together to say enough is enough. Things can no longer continue to go unchallenged. And if it means that the opposition is going to insist that without electoral reform between now and the next 2 years, that no election is going to hold up in Nigeria, so be it. And if we could do that, if the Nigerian can come together and do that, and I think the power that be can start, we'll start listening.
Interesting. So is there a role for the Nigerian diaspora contingent in all this? And the follow-up to that will be, do you think the government should engage the Nigerian diaspora some more. Because when I speak to people in government, where the NIDCOM people and all that, when they say NIDOE is divided, they don't know who is in charge, who is this and that. They say the Nigerian diaspora, there are too many bodies, they don't have a common front. If they deal with them individually, some of them are worse than the people we're dealing with at home. You understand? They want appointment, they want land that sometimes it's hard for you to actually say this guy lives in America, this guy lives in Germany, because their mentality, their modus operandi is worse than that guy in Oshodi. And I was even told by some guy in government, a legislator, senator, that there are some of them that came from diaspora that ran for office and won, and their conduct in the legislative arm of government is terrible. So my question to you is how can the Nigerian diaspora contingent help Nigeria out in all the Indians have done it, the Jews are doing it for Israel. Almost every country in the world that has a diaspora contingent is helping them. The Nigerian diaspora have not lived up to the billing. So how can they live up to the billing? How should the government engage them?
Well, I have to be very, very careful at this area. Knowing that I've lived
diaspora too.
One. Not only that, because what I've said in the past has always been, misinterpreted, and then I end up being on the end of the firing line. But let me start by saying that I would challenge any legislator in Nigeria to come up and square with people like you in a debate, to come up and square with people like Professor Monday Gold in a debate, to come up and square up with people like Professor Charles in a debate, and to see how much they even, in terms about leadership, in terms of governance. And so it's easier for such people to hide in their office and claim that the diasporas are divided and the rest of them. Of course, we know the book about divide and rule. It's convenient for them to point fingers that the Nigerians are divided when it suits them, and then when it's not suiting them. Let me, why I give these preambles. The Nigerian Diaspora Commission was constituted with the diaspora input in mind, a board where we are going to have about 8 members of the diaspora and 4 members, from the government anointed, and to have a board to come down, to sit down together and say, how do we harness the resources of the diaspora, financially, economically, politically, and human resources, so to say, and then begin to work up a diaspora policy that is going to be beneficial for the government and for Nigeria. And now, tell me, is APC not fighting? Is PDP not fighting? And so why would you say because NIDOE is divided and because of that you don't want to engage with them? So why is APC government still functioning if we have people dividing within that thing? I think it's just a lazy excuse. Now, I'm saying this is not to encourage that NIDOE members can keep fighting and not to expect any consequence. But the role of the NIDCOM board is to mediate in such issues in the diaspora and make sure that the positive side overshadows the negative side. But because it suits their narrative, in terms of economy, I mean, we've said it over and over again, so it will be sound like a broken record, that our remittances, whether it's personal remittance and the rest of them, has kept this country from going bankruptcy. So we are enjoying that. Take an example of, I think it was a petition from TIF group that went to they made a petition at the National Assembly about the killings, and a deputy Senate president was saying that the issues of the diaspora from TIF will not be considered in Senate because they are not members of Nigeria. They are not a consigned constituency. This is how callous they can be when it has to do with treating us like as if we are not part of the federation. But when it comes to over subscription of diaspora bond, with about 130% of our subscription, diasporas are top. When it has to do with 65 billion remittances within a 3 years period, they will say that diaspora. But when it comes to political participation, then we're no longer necessary. We are fighting and we cannot be united. So I challenge anybody who is giving that narrative to come up with a diaspora commission board, to institute it according to the bill, and to see what will happen to those many fighting Nigerians in diaspora, to see whether they will not come under one umbrella. You cannot do without a single umbrella to speak for the diasporas. If you have any other better mechanism to harness all the diaspora interest to flow into the homeland, then repeal the law, repeal the NIDCOM bill, and then set up another one. Because the original idea of doing that is because the government said they cannot speak with. We have about over 30 million Nigerians in diaspora, and honestly speaking, over thousands of associations, geared towards Nigeria. How do you want to speak with these 1,000 associations? Is it possible? It's practically impossible. And that was actually the essence of the wisdom of President Obasanjo to bridge this gap, to bring everybody together. And they have fought for a good number of years with everybody input, both the legislation and in the diaspora, to create this diaspora commission so that they can have a synergy where a civil debate. I am deep in my heart that we have people. Again, I'm not patronizing you. People like you in United States and so many people across the globe who are men of integrity, who are women of integrity, who are professionals in things they do. If we have a mechanism to harness them under the umbrella of NIDOE will, you will lift them up from where they are struggling about discussing about pettiness and petty things to start discussing national issues. If you have a baby, it is your duty as a father to help guide your baby, to help make your baby strong, to train him, to support him and grow. And what are we hearing? We are hearing, we are not united. We are not. Well, like I said, we hope we have a leadership in Nigeria that really value Nigerian diaspora, that value the human resources this country can boast of. The individuals that are making wave across the globe at every level, from NASA to Mercedes-Benz to Ford to GM. I hope one day we're going to have a leadership that will begin to galvanize really these potentials for homeland development.
Interesting. My final question to you is this: if we don't have electoral reforms, the status quo stays the way it is, and they compromise, there's free fall, and everything goes wrong in 2027. I mean, I'm trying to let you play a crystal ball now, a crystal magician. What do you think the future holds? Things are already, from all indication, they're bad enough. I mean, we don't have to be, patronizing about it. Nobody is happy about it. You understand? I mean, except of course, you are benefiting from the chaos. I mean, the extreme elite, which is not good for those of us in diaspora. But what do you think is our worst case scenario, considering everything that's happened? I mean, I don't think it has ever been this bad, but what do you think is our worst case scenario if we continue like this?
Well, there's a German proverb that says, hope dies last. I am very, very optimistic that we are going to push for reform. Saying that, believing that, looking at the worst scenario, we'll be given a blank check for the current politicians. Nigeria is at crossroad. We managed to escape the last crossroad, in the last election. But I don't think anybody who wants to manipulate the next election is going to get away with that. They know that. They can read the crystal balls. They know that. They've exhausted their credit in terms of patience with Nigerians. They know that. So I think we're going to have a reform. That's my prediction. We're going to have a reform, one way or the other, and then our election in 2027 2027 is going to count one way or the other. There's no alternative, because I don't see any alternative for Nigeria. So no, there's going to be a reform, and it's going to happen before 2027.
Thank you so much, Senator Kenneth Gbandi. You know, I hope you run again. I think you have a lot to add. I mean,
thank you, sir.
You've done well for NIDOE in Germany, in Europe. I've read reports about your activities, the way you tend to. I mean, this is not recent. You've been doing for years, you know. So you have a fantastic pedigree. So we need people like you, you know. So to our viewers, we were talking to Kenneth Gbandi, and he said it all. We need to do more. We need electoral reform. I'm sure there's a consensus on that. I mean, I think she's just a given. It's a basic for us. I envy the Ghanaians every time, you know, they have an election. I can just imagine during the last Ghanaian election when the loser had even congratulated the winner before the result was officially announced, and nobody is in court to win anybody over it. So we need to get to that place. We need to use our best 11. It's more pertinent now than ever before. We need to bring back the positive moral fiber of this country. We can't leave everything to charlatans. It's really getting embarrassing, and we need to do more. So to all our viewers, thank you very much. See you next week, Friday. And my brother, Kenneth, see you again. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure always being on your program.
Anytime.